Y'all thought this shit was over. Nah, my people, this shit far from over. This is just the beginning.
Well, again, I'm not as deep an expert on that as I am on vaccines.
Now we need to go and look in families to find those people who may be sick and remove them and isolate them.
We want to thank you for turning folks in and making sure we are all safe.
For the world at large, normalcy only returns when we've largely vaccinated the entire global population.
Now, my people, let's cut straight to the chase. Last week, a WHO, World Health Organization, top official stated it's time for authorities to come to your home to see who's infected and take them away.
That ability not only to isolate cases, but to rapidly detect illness in the context and remove those contacts should they become sick was a central part of that. And as he said, they're using apps now to do that. They're testing apps, but they didn't do it with apps in Singapore. They did that with community workers, with public health workers, visiting the houses, checking on people, checking their health status every day and saying, how are you? Have you got a fever? Have you got a cough? And if a contact has developed a cough or a fever, they were taken immediately for testing. So yes, we need the information technology tools. They help. They are not the solution. Right now, we don't have an alternative to what we would have considered in the old days boot leather epidemiology. Public health practitioners, doctors, nurses, community workers working with communities to detect cases at community level. And the most likely person to become a case is someone who's been a significant contact of another case. And at the moment, in most parts of the world, due to lockdown, most of the transmission that's actually happening in many countries now is happening in the household, at family level. In some senses, transmission has been taken off the streets and pushed back into family units. Now we need to go and look in families to find those people who may be sick and remove them and isolate them in a safe and dignified manner.
Oh, so you say. That was Dr. Michael J. Ryan, current Executive Director of the World Health Organization. And some of you may remember his face from Event 201.
The scenario you will be presented with this morning could easily become one shared reality one day. I fully expect that we will be confronted by a fast-moving, highly lethal pandemic of a respiratory pathogen.
Those of you who are not up to speed, Event 201 was a simulation of a global coronavirus outbreak, which was conducted by the Bill and Linda Gates Foundation just 6 weeks before the actual coronavirus first case was reported.
Good morning, and thank you all for being part of this Pandemic Emergency Board. We're at the start of what's looking like it will be a severe pandemic. And there are problems emerging that can only be solved by global business and governments working together. The global community has been working to respond to this pandemic since its recognition, but as health and economic impacts have become more severe, the World Economic Forum has convened this board because of your combined expertise, your backgrounds, and your global voice. We will need all of you to help us respond to urgent policy crises that are emerging. The purpose of this board is to advise leaders in national governments, global business, and international organizations on the response to the pandemic, particularly focused on international problems that require collaboration between business and government. Your recommendations will be critical and will be promulgated and communicated broadly at the end of this meeting.
Now, the participants of the exercise included the United Nations, the World Bank, the American and Chinese CDC, the majority of the vaccine manufacturers, the media, and many, many others. That was in my previous video, and I basically showed how Bill Gates basically owns the World Health Organization through his multi-million-dollar business partnerships and also donations. Also display how Bill Gates and many others are calling for global governance, mass vaccinations of people before the world can so-called go back to normal, essentially holding the world hostage. And it's also interesting to know that the World Health Organization has a long history of working for and with Bill Gates and already carried out mass vaccine programs. Now, right here on the WHO website, We can clearly see that Dr. Michael J. Ryan worked with Bill Gates, WHO, UNICEF, which both fall underneath the United Nations, the U.S. CDC, and U.S. Institute of Medicine, and many others to carry out 44 mass vaccine campaigns on 25 million children reportedly in 8 different countries, utilizing over 140 million polio vaccines. Now, my people, this is profound. This man, in partnership with the United Nations and Bill Gates, has already conducted mass vaccine programs. He's in charge over at the World Health Organization Emergency Program. That's a major role, my people. Speaking of polio vaccines, if we look back in history, according to an official NIH National Institute Health.gov website, openly admitted for a period of 6 years from 1955 to 1961, contaminated polio vaccines were given out to 98 million people, which has been documented on the National Institute Health.gov website, and it clearly states that it has given many people cancer due to the presence of contaminated monkey cell cultures used in the preparations of polio vaccine. Now we have this new coronavirus vaccine that they are openly bragging about. It's the most rushed in production vaccine in history. Are we all supposed to line up and roll up our sleeves? I don't fucking think so. Cocksuckers got zero chances with me. However, now this World Health Organization official is in position to lead another Bill Gates global vaccine program. And he's currently in a position to carry out Bill Gates' grand vision to vaccinate every woman, every child, every man on the fucking planet.
But you don't have a choice. People act like you have a choice. People don't feel like going to the stadium when they might get infected. You know, it's not the government who's saying, okay, just ignore this disease. And, you know, people are deeply affected by seeing these deaths, by knowing they could be part of the transmission chain. And, you know, old people, their parents, their grandparents could be affected by this. And so you don't get to say, ignore what's going on here. There will be the ability, particularly in rich countries, to open up if things are done well over the next few months. But for the world at large, normalcy only returns when we've largely vaccinated the entire global population.
But also building a global DNA database and issuing the global population a digital ID that will likely be integrated in the near future at some point. Now we have Dr. Deborah Birx, who sits a part of a board that receives billions of dollars from Bill Gates that I spoke about in my previous video. She has admitted no matter what your pre-existing health conditions are, if you test positive for the coronavirus and you die, they're going to say that you died due to coronavirus statistics.
Can you talk about your concerns about deaths being misreported by coronavirus because of either lack of testing or standards for how they're characterized?
So I think in this country, we've taken a very liberal approach to mortality. And I think the reporting here has been pretty straightforward over the last 5 to 6 weeks. Prior to that, when there wasn't testing in January and February, that's a very different situation and unknown. There are other countries that if you had a pre-existing condition, and let's say the virus caused you to go to the ICU and then have a heart or kidney problem, some countries are recording that as a heart issue or a kidney issue and not a COVID-19 death. Right now, we're still recording it, and the great thing about having forms that come in and a form that has the ability to mark it as COVID-19 infection, the intent is right now that if someone dies with COVID-19, we are counting that as a COVID-19 death.
Can you be sure? I mean, you hear from coroners that that's not necessarily the case. Are you sure? How can you be confident about that? And is there any concern that it skews the data that you're trying to collect in terms of projections?
Openly admitted that they are inflating numbers and they are lying. My opinion, to justify their extreme lockdowns, these forced quarantines, and possibly these forced vaccinations. World Health Organization openly admitted they want to come to your home, see who's infected or who they may deem as infected, not to take the consideration of the major issues with the test themselves and take these people away. Now, this is coming from the same United Nations and World Health Organization who has praised China's hardcore authoritarian lockdown. Where in China, they were literally welding people's doors shut, dragging them, kicking, screaming, pulling them away from their homes. Some of these people reportedly are even still missing at this point. And if that's not enough, my people, the UN just accepted China into the United Nations Human Rights Council. Woo! This may be a good time to remind everyone, China detained over 1 million legal Muslims being forcefully detained in some considered concentration camps, and for reasons unrelated to this so-called pandemic. And this was taken long before this outbreak ever occurred. And if you think this type of behavior is not possible to happen in the United States, history would tell you otherwise. During World War II, the United States government rounded up over 100,000 people of Japanese descent and threw them in what some would consider concentration camps against the law and against their will.
Motivated by vocal outcries from politicians and military officials, FDR signed Executive Order 9066, empowering the U.S. Army to designate areas from which any or all persons may be excluded. He later formed the War Relocation Authority to establish 10 permanent camps, housing nearly 120,000 Japanese Americans, mostly from the western United States. 2/3 of those interned were native-born American citizens. With only 6 days to dispose of their possessions, residents were forced to sell their belongings and even their homes for small sums of money. Internment camps were often situated in isolated deserts, prone to harsh weather, and surrounded by barbed wire and guard towers.
Now, there may be a day that comes, my people, when you get pulled over, they're not going to ask you for your license or your registration. They're just going to scan you. Hell, they may even be able to scan you from their car. Now, they want everybody to unquestionably obey these liberal COVID-19 84 measures. And if you step out of line, my people, they are going to pay your neighbors to snitch on your ass. Essentially being a paid spy for the fucking world government, because that's exactly what the fuck they are doing, my people.
To make sure that everybody continues to let us know where those folks are. If you've observed recurring violations of the Safer at Home order, please continue to let us know at coronavirus.lacity.org/business violation. You know the old expression about snitches? Well, in this case, snitches get rewards. We want to thank you for turning folks in and making sure we are all safe.
I tell you, the type of games that they play to manipulate people to make them feel as if they're snitching is cool. It's the great saying, go for where I'm from, snitches get stitches. But it's fucked up that people will sit around and even give a thought in their mind to snitch on somebody when all of us are in this shit together. Don't snitch, fucking thing I want you people to understand. People keep waiting for someone else to save them, waiting for a leader to tell them what to do, believing that a knight in shining armor is going to come to the rescue at the last minute. Trust the plan, they say. Now, the only person who's going to save you is yourself and the Most High. It's up to you, the individual. Nobody's coming to save you, my people. Not Trump, not the government, not QAnon. Trust the plan, they say. What fucking plan? The only plan I see rolling out now is global governance and the end of way of life as we know it. Now, at the end of the day, it's up to you, each and every one of us. The real question is this right here. What are you going to do once they come to your house? Are you just going to roll over and submit? Are you going to let them come take your husbands? Let them come take your wives? Let them come take your mothers and your fathers and your children? What are you going to do? Because they are openly saying this. I just showed y'all the fucking clips and you see it with your own 2 eyes. The lead doctor at the World Health Organization, Dr. Michael J. Ryan, has said that they need to come to your home. This is the same man on record working for Bill Gates for his global vaccines. Now, I would never submit. Me personally, I would never submit to them motherfuckers. If they ever think that they can come in any one of my homes, lay a finger on me or my family, they got another thing coming. But that's a discussion for another day, my people. However, I would do anything and everything out of my will and my power to defend not just myself, but my family. And another thing, my people, if we start to see blackouts, please be ready. I'm not saying this to use as a fearmonger to make anyone be afraid, but I want you people to understand this right here. At Event 201, the coronavirus simulation that they had right before this pandemic emerged, they spoke about blackouts in a simulation.
Different ways as to how best to manage the overwhelming amounts of dis and misinformation circulating over the internet. In some cases, limited internet shutdowns are being implemented to quell panic.
We've already seen the media floating the idea that the internet is at the breaking point due to this crisis because everybody is at home on the internet. Now, my people, if you think what I'm saying is far-fetched, ask yourself. If somebody would have told you back in February or the beginning of March that the whole entire United States would be locked down weeks later, would you have believed that? If somebody would have told you that half of the world's population would be locked down, would you consider that being far-fetched? Now, in the United States of America, they have been going door to door looking for people who have fled their quarantine lockdown zones. They've put this in the news. Basically, all I want you people to understand is this right here is to have a fucking plan, because at the end of the day, I'm not worried. I know the Most High Yahweh Shai got my back. Now, do you know if he has yours? Because at the end of the day, this shit has been prophesized, whether you believe in it or whether you don't. This shit is unfolding right in front of all of our eyes. This is time for people to display if you truly have true faith in the Most High. Instead of allowing Bill Gates or the World Health Organization or the government or the New World Order, the Bilderbergs, the Rockefellers, the Rothschilds, and etc., and many other motherfuckers that we don't even know about. Don't allow these motherfuckers to put you in any type of fear tactic, especially CNN, MSNBC, all of the news outlets. I'm not worried about none of them motherfuckers because my faith is firm and strong and on lockdown with the Most High, my people. I need everybody to subscribe to my YouTube channel, LaPrada Smith. And for the people who are wondering who I am in this video, and if you're not already following me, my Instagram is Mr. 6_foot_5. At the end of the day, my people, this shit ain't for clout. This shit is for information for my people to be awakened to what's going on in this world, because these motherfuckers can't take over my mind. Don't let them take over yours, my people. All praises to the Most High. Shalawat, shalawat, shalom, my people. One.
Well, again, I'm not as deep an expert on that as I am on vaccines.
Now we need to go and look in families to find those people who may be sick and remove them and isolate them.
We want to thank you for turning folks in and making sure we are all safe.
For the world at large, normalcy only returns when we've largely vaccinated the entire global population.